All right. Hello, my name is JJ Jara, and I'm one of the passionate few. So what was it like to interview Omar, the rock star, the biggest and baddest podcast interviewer there is? Well, I got to tell you, it was exciting. It was funny. You know, we cracked a couple of jokes here and there during the episode. But I got to tell you, overall, it was a great conversation between two like-minded individuals that led to a great episode. You know, in this episode, you're going to find out things about Omar that no one knew until now. What I really hope for you to get out of this is to listen to his trials, adversities that he's gone through in the last few years, and use that as fuel to get you unstuck out of any situation that you may be in, okay? So I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Let's go. Super excited to have you on my podcast, and super excited to turn the tables a bit today.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me on, man. I'm used to being on the other side of the fence, but it's cool that we can now show the audience the tables turned. Absolutely.
So I just witnessed a great interview, and I got to tell you, it's an honor to see how someone like you that's been doing the podcasting and the videos for a while actually get it done. And so I got to say thank you for the opportunity to let me sit in, and it was an amazing experience. So thank you so much.
Awesome, man. It was an honor to have you here, and I'm excited that we got to, not only do an epic interview, but that you got to see all the behind the scenes, because a lot of people see the finished product, but they don't realize there's this camera and that camera and the lights and the timing and the this and the that. So it's cool that you get to see the human side of it more than just the clean, polished side of it.
That's right. So Omar, one of the reasons I wanted to interview you is because just like you, I'm tapping into a new part of my life. You and I spoke off camera how everything kind of started for you.
Right.
And I feel that the same thing is happening in my life right now. I'm at a point in my life that certain things don't really catch my attention.
Right.
Others do. And just like you, I believe that everything started with your podcast and your YouTube videos started because of one experience, something that happened in your life.
Yes.
And that's something that I really want to connect with.
Yes.
That's something that I want to get out of you, because I feel that I can relate so much with that.
Yes.
And so you're passionate.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about how passionate you are, and I believe that in this world, there's got to be more people that are passionate about everything we do. You agree?
Yes, sir.
As you know, I'm in the real estate world. And in the real estate world, Omar, it's a lot of people, especially right now, there are people are getting into real estate, that want to do real estate sales, yet they don't have that passion. And unfortunately, I see a lot of people, because I coach a lot of people, that they don't have that spark, that passion.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of things could go left versus right.
Right.
And so I want to ask you, Omar, when this whole thing started with you shifting your life, because I know that you're in a deep relationship, and something happened there.
Yes.
that just shifted everything.
Yes.
And you share with me how that your ex liked three different right,
yes,
followed and liked three different individuals.
Yes.
And so you made it a passion to go and interview those three individuals. Tell me more about that, Omar.
Yeah.
How did that start?
So essentially, this was probably 2016, early 2016. I had been dating someone that at the time I thought I was super in love with, but like all relationships, we look back and go, man, I was driven by something else, or what was I thinking, or what was I drinking, or whatever it was. And so at the time, though, I was so into the relationship, but in retrospect, I realized that it wasn't so much her, it was that she was an escape from the reality that I was trying to avoid. And so at the time, I found myself in a place where I was 24 years old, and I saw all my friends, doing well, and here or there, or, this business or that niche or this sales or in real estate or whatever. And I found myself like I had all this ambition, I had all these desires, but I couldn't find a way to implement it, to apply it. And so I was working in sales, and at the time I was working at Tesla, actually in Brea Mall in Southern California. And I was selling Teslas, and I was doing well at the job, but I wasn't fulfilled by it, right? So I became the top salesperson on the floor, but I found myself getting into a lot of self-sabotage, and drinking and smoking and just doing a lot of things where, no matter how much money I made, I always spent more than I made, trying to cover up the holes of the lack of fulfillment from the thing. And so, long story short, all I had was a significant other who was kind of it was like the one thing in my mind that I convinced myself was like the best part of my life type thing. In retrospect, I realized we were not a great fit at all, but that was kind of my escape. Long story short, we were together for just shy of a year, and everything was super close, super connected, and all of a sudden, we got into a scuffle a couple times, and then one day out of nowhere, point blank, she just ends it, just like that. And I remember I was so devastated, because here I was overweight, I was $30,000 in debt, I was just depressed with my life, trying to find a way out, and she was the one thing that I had in my life that I convinced myself was good or working, and then now that left. So I felt like I had nothing. And I'm here in my mid-20s, and although mid-20s, it's not old, at the time I had convinced myself that my best years were behind me, or, because I'm comparing myself with social media, and this guy made $1 trillion by 20 or whatever it is. And so I just remember being so depressed and so bummed out for such a long time. After that, it was maybe a couple months, but every day I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, couldn't do anything. And then until one day I had $300 left in my bank account. And this is a funny story, actually. I hired a coach, and since, I've had coaches nonstop ever since and believe in them tremendously. That's why I love what you do. I had a coach, and I had $300 to my name, and I think it was like $250 an hour or something like that. And I had never spent money like that on a coach or anything like that. But I said, okay, cool. This guy had built, some awesome stuff in business. So I said, okay. So I do the coaching call with him, empty my bank account, and I will never forget. He told me, congratulations. Because I was telling him all my problems, right? Oh, the breakup, this, that, the other, tell him all my problems. And he goes, congratulations, man, because she just walked out of your life to free you up to do what you're meant to do. Wow. I said, what do you mean? He goes, it's up to you what this is. This could be a breakdown, or this could be a breakthrough. And I'll never forget, he showed me this line from Tony Robbins. Tony says, nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning that we give it. And so he said, Omar, you decide if this breakup means a breakdown, or you decide if this means a breakthrough. And I'll never forget it. And he said, Omar, if life was perfect, I'll never forget it. He said, if life was perfect, what would happen next? And I remember in that moment, that was the moment you're asking, where there was a shift. And because it allowed me the possibility to dream. I think so many people in life never give themselves permission to imagine what would happen if life was perfect. Now people might see me do these interviews, meeting all these people, maybe it's money or it's the show or whatever it is, and go, wow, that looks awesome. But I had no clue how to do any of it. And that coach gave me permission to dream in the ideal. Because when you have a plan, you can work on it. Most people never have a plan. They assume that life is just wherever they end up. Yeah. So he said, if life was perfect, what would happen next? And because I had an ex-girlfriend who loved 3 things more than anything, right? She was in sales, so she loved Grant Cardone. She loved fitness and working out, so she was into Quest Nutrition. And when we'd hang out, she would always eat hot Cheetos, much like most women. And men really do. Everybody loves hot Cheetos, right?
Right.
So she loved those 3 things. And so when he asked me what would happen next if life was perfect, I had some ideas. And so lo and behold, we put together this idea about interviewing people. I didn't really know what I was doing or how I was doing it, or I didn't have any money. I didn't know about a production crew or cameras or anything. But I just took massive imperfect action, and I wound up not only getting in touch with the creator of Hot Cheetos, who I chased down for an interview. Now we've become great friends. Also reached out to $1 billion creator of Quest Nutrition, who's also become a good friend. We've had him on the show twice, Tom Bilyeu. And then Grant Cardone, who, he's become a client of production company. I've had him on the show 3 times now. He's become a cool friend. And so all that happened literally out of the pain of that breakup. I went down as a no name with no followers, no audience, no show. And I chased down Tom Bilyeu, creator of Quest, creator of Hot Cheetos, Mr. Montañez, and Grant Cardone. And I ended up having the most watched and downloaded interviews in the world with all of them, literally that first year. So that was the inspiration from that breakup.
I see that, and as you're talking about, I could see that glare in your eyes.
Yes,
I could tell it was deep.
It was, and it was, even though the motivation has long since faded from that. I mean, that was only the spark in the beginning. I never held on to her. I wish her well. We made peace, so there's no ill will there. But at the time, and this is why I tell people to use their pain.
That's right.
And I think your pain is your greatest gift. There's a reason why most of the most incredible stories you hear are people who, had a drug addiction or didn't have a family, or didn't have, parents, or came from, a low-income area and said, man, I don't want this for my life, right? It's born out of that pain. And I think some people become jailed by that pain, and some people use that pain as power. The way I think of it is kind of like pain is like gasoline.
Yes.
And you're driving the car, so you choose if you get to put it in reverse, you can put it in park, you can put it in neutral, you can put it in drive. But all that life can give you is gas.
That's right.
Life doesn't force you one way or the other. There's people who, were born into tremendous wealth that end up being addicted to drugs, spending their life in and out of rehab. There's people who were born with nothing and build their life to have everything. So it was really in that moment where I realized that nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning that I give it.
That's right. I could relate so much with what you said right now, that pain can fuel you to do greater, better things. I've, I grew up in a household with an abusive father. He used to get drunk. He was an alcoholic, and he used to beat on my mom every single time he would get drunk.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
In front of you guys, wow.
In front of us. And I remember growing up as a kid and saying, I will never, never become that person. I don't want to beat on my wife, and I don't want to be drunk. And so I used that to fuel something inside of me and just be the complete opposite. So
Wow.
I can relate with that.
Kudos to you, man. That's awesome.
What are we gonna do with that pain, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about pain. Omar, you recently lost someone that was very dear to your heart.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, my grandmother, rest in peace, Angela Vega. About a month ago, I had a health situation, so I ended up in the hospital, had to have an emergency surgery. And that could have been, had I waited, life-altering or life-ending, life-threatening. And so literally a week after I had a big health scare that really woke me up and shook me up to appreciate life and health, a week later my grandmother passes away while I'm holding her hand, reading her a prayer. I was in there with the nurse, and I literally watched my grandmother take her final breaths. And she was in hospice, and she had been sick for a while. So there is some peace in knowing that her suffering has ended. But at the same time, she was surrounded by family and loved ones. And at the time she passed, it was late at night. It was probably 2, 3 in the morning. But I felt like God put something in my heart to not leave, because everybody had left and I had come give her love all day. But she was not in a comprehensive state, mm-hmm. right? And so we all kind of knew the end was near. And but something in my heart I couldn't leave the room. I felt like guilty or something in a way. And lo and behold, I listened to that whisper. Was it God-given? I think so. But I listened to that whisper, and I ended up staying. It was just me and the nurse. There was like an overnight hospice nurse. And I was just holding my grandmother's hand, just, tearing up and just praying. And it was at that moment she passed away. And it really reignited what I've already been doing. But those two situations back to back, health and death, life, all into one like that, really triggered a whole new level of inspiration that I think I've already been acting on, but just had a way more shifted gears to a gear that I didn't even know was there prior.
You mentioned off camera that you had a medical condition about a month ago.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I had an appendectomy. So appendicitis, it's when basically your appendix, it can rupture. Fortunately, mine didn't totally rupture, but when it ruptures, it can get all sorts of unhealthy stuff inside your organs, and it's a mess to clean up. Apparently, a lot of people get this, and it's kind of spontaneous. But had I waited and just slept on the pain, the surgeon said that it could have been fatal. So fortunately, I went to the hospital. I got rushed there. They did an EKG full test, and they literally, like, surgeons rushed in. They're like, "We need to have surgery right now." And I was like, "What the heck?" Like, out of nowhere. So I literally went from staying in a $1,700 a night thing with the team, oceanfront, Laguna Beach, doing this epic interview and filming content. Went from being Omar the Rockstar to, patient number 422215, having surgery at 3 a.m. Had 3 incisions put in my abdomen. They removed my appendix. And I just remember, like, in the midst of all that, I was all drugged up and just thinking, like, whoa, this could all end just like that. And so it just intensified my sense of urgency. And then, like I said, a week and a half later, my grandmother passes away. So it was just like you talk about pivotal moments, and that was definitely one of them that's really triggered me to want to help inspire people. And that's why I loved putting this together, because I know me and you collaborated on this to help feed 10,000 people,
Yes.
men, women, and children in need. So, when I was approached with the idea of working with you on that, I thought that would be super epic. And so that's why really my heart has been opened up to spend the rest of my life giving to people in need. Because in that moment when I was in the hospital bed, I wasn't thinking about me. I wasn't thinking about, how can I get this, or how can I acquire this, or how can I have, all I was thinking about was how could I be healthy, and who could I have helped? How could I have been nicer to my mom? How could I have been kinder here? Who could I have given love to, or money to, or support to? And to think that there are millions of people around the world. Imagine if I was in a third world country and I didn't have access to hospital or surgery, or if I was on an airplane. And think about how many people all around the world have health conditions. I'm over here in a really nice hospital being taken care of. Imagine how many men, women, and children don't even have food to sleep at night.
That's right.
And so it really just opened my heart, and that's why I'm excited to do this. And that moment really intensified that for me.
Absolutely. So what happens when things in our life collide and those tragic moments come unexpectedly? Certain people tend to retract. Some people tend to get scared. But you did the complete opposite.
Right.
You became more passionate about your work. You got creative, and you wanted to do more, to help more. Tell me about that, Omar.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant, and I think it touches on something that you mentioned earlier about, you coach people and help people unlock their potential and grow their income, grow their life, grow their business, or other areas of their life, not just their business. But I find that it really comes down to the meaning. And there's a beautiful line I love. It says that the experience, the label you give the experience becomes the experience. The label you give the experience becomes the experience. And I think too many people let the narrative of victimhood be the label they use. Some people, hey, my dad was alcoholic and abusive, so that's why I'm an alcoholic and abusive. Some people like yourself are alcoholic and abusive, and you're like, man, I'm going to be the most loving father and husband in the world because of I experienced something, polarized to that. So I think that that's huge, and I think one thing I noticed from not only myself but interviewing some of the most accomplished people on the planet on the show is that a lot of them have something like that. They have a compelling, people say a why, have a why that makes you cry. I really think that when I talk to people who actually end up making it, it's not about how can I get income to put it in my savings, or to put it in the bank, or feel good, or get a Gucci belt, or whatever it is. Like, you could do that stuff, but that's got to be a byproduct. That can't be an angle. That's not compelling. Because when you're tired or lazy or whatever, you have to have a thought that is more intense and more, not comfortable, but more desirable than I just want to lay down and eat Cheetos and not, prospect today or get on the phones or whatever the thing is. So I think that for me, when I started the show, it was to, one, that why, the motivation. I wasn't even thinking about money. It was to prove the girl wrong. Right? So even sometimes spiteful motivations, even though people be like, oh, that's evil motivation, it works. It works. Sam Bakhtiar, one of my mentors, says that he had a list, and part of his list would be people he wants to prove wrong. So every morning he sees their names, so he can't get lazy. It's time to go to work. It's time to prove these people who doubted him wrong, or whatever it is. So I think that's important. They say results come first, actions come second. And so if you don't have a compelling reason to produce a result, you're not going to take the actions, right? So you got to have a compelling reason. Reasons come first, and then results come second. If you don't have a compelling why, for example, in real estate, when some of my buddies do millions of dollars in real estate, and a lot of them started out as agents. And when I ask them, what motivated them early on, it wasn't to just have a big commission month for themselves. It was because they saw a property or multi-units, and they know they needed a X amount of down payment. And so now it was about getting the down payment for the multifamily units. It wasn't about, let me just get 10,000 this month so that I can blah blah blah. There was a bigger play, because then if they get the units, then they can have cash flow. And so now they might not have nothing. They might be broke living at their mom's house, but because of the possibility of that dream of cash flow, they're willing to take the action in the micro to serve the macro. And I think too many people are thinking just short term. Their time horizon isn't long enough, and I think that's the difference.
Yeah. So I know you've interviewed, the greats in the industry, and you've gotten a lot of feedback, a lot of notes, a lot of coaching. Because I feel like when we interview people, that's like a one-on-one coaching,
a free coaching session.
A free coaching session,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
And so I know you've gotten a lot of great value from all those interviews.
Yes.
What would you say was your biggest aha moment so far with all these people that you've interviewed? I'm sure there's tons, but the biggest one that you just pops on top of your head.
It's three. Number one, make decisions fast. Even if they're wrong, it's okay to make decisions that are wrong, but speed is more important than correctness initially. Speed is so important. Ed talks about this concept that success loves speed. It's better to be wrong fast than to be right slow. So that's one thing. They all make decisions fast. And that's one thing that for me has been a huge focus, because I would overanalyze this or that or whatever. In the long run, you're not going to remember those things. So they all make fast decisions. And the better you get at fast decisions, the better you get at decisions as a whole. So that's huge. I know that sounds simple, but so many people never do it. Right. They just sit there and analyze until, analysis paralysis. So that's number one. Number two, they all have great teams. Even the interview you just saw, when I asked him what's his best advice, he said, get an A team. Magic Johnson, when I interviewed him, he said, hey, if you want to win a championship in business, and just like the Lakers won the championship, shout out LA, it's like they did it with a championship team. All the mindset and motivation and coaching is great, but if you don't have a championship team, what does it matter? Right. You could put Michael Jordan could coach a team, but if it's not a team of 8 players, you're not going to win a championship. So that's huge. Number 2 would be surround yourself with a great team. And then number 3, and this is probably the biggest misconception mindset-wise that I've noticed, but whether it's Grant Cardone, billionaire John Paul DeJoria, whoever it is, some of the greats throughout history and business, when I ask them, I always ask some variation of the question of, like, do you ever pinch yourself or be like, how the hell did I end up here? Or how the heck am I the guy, or the gal, or whatever it is. And this is the third thing, is that most of them have no idea what they were doing.
That's right.
They didn't have this perfect, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and it happens exactly according to plan. Most successful people, they couldn't have even planned what happened. But the reason it worked is because they took massive imperfect action. And if you take massive imperfect action on 100 things, 12 things can make you a multimillionaire. Right. One thing could change your whole life. It doesn't take a lot of things to work. All it takes is one thing, and it'll pay for all your mistakes. It'll pay for everything else. But most people stop swinging because they just feel like they struck out. But in life, there's no umpire. That's right. You're your own umpire. You're your own pitcher. You're your own catcher. And most people, they swing a couple times and they don't try things. Whether it's Grant Cardone or, like I said, Ed Milet or John Paul DeJoria, founder of, Paul Mitchell and Patron Tequila. This guy was living in a car at 37 years old, would go on to build not one, but 2 multi-billion-dollar companies, 2. You look at Elon Musk, PayPal, Solar City, Tesla, SpaceX, in the same 24 hours that me and you have, yet somebody watching this is like, I don't have time to make a sales call. Right. You know what I'm saying? So it really comes down to having a compelling reason. But again, most people, they take relentless action. They have great teams. And they also have no idea what they're doing, but they take massive action at a fast pace. They make decisions fast. And in that momentum of bettering themselves, things work. And people remember you by the things that succeed, not by the failures. That's right. Right? That's right. Steve Jobs has this famous quote from Apple, right? Apple are arguably the biggest physical product company on planet Earth. They asked him, Steve, what are you most proud of? Because if you think about it, Apple, the big $1 trillion company that it is, was founded on 4 products: an iPad, an iPhone, a MacBook, and the desktop. That's it. All these companies put out all these products. And Steve says, I'm most proud of what I've said no to. Most people can't say no. And I think that's the biggest thing that holds people back, is they say yes to too many things. They cloud their judgment. And one of the best pieces of advice to close up that point is that people don't have business problems. They have personal problems that reflect in their business.
That's right.
I think that's huge.
I'm glad you brought the business aspect. I'm a big believer, Omar. I've been, just last recession, I lost everything. I properties. I had to literally sell my boat for like $3,000-$4,000, something like that. It was a bad thing. So I know how being financially broke feels, because I've been financially broke a couple times.
Me too.
And just like you.
Yeah.
And but I know that a lot of our problems, a lot of people's issues, are due to financial issues.
Yes.
Do you agree?
100%.
And so I've a few years back, thank God, it just clicked, and I said, wait a minute, if I want to eliminate most of my problems, I have to be financially set.
Yes.
And so I kind of reverse engineer everything that I used to do with that simple concept.
Yeah.
If I want to have less problems, if I really go back to the root of the problem, a lot of those problems initiate because of financial stress, unfortunately.
Yes.
You agree?
Yes.
And so now that's one of the things that I go by. And when I hear people, talk about problems, and when I ask a series of questions, it always boils down to financial stress.
Yes. Grant Cardone has a great thing about this. He says that not having money doubles all your problems. So if you got 100 problems, you're gonna have 200, because now if you get a flat tire or you need a new tire, now you got the one problem being the tire, but your second problem is you can't pay for it. So now all your problems double instantly. Hey, you want to feed your family? You got a problem, your family doesn't have food. Boom, now you got another problem, you got to pay for it.
That's right.
And then if you get a credit card, now you got a third problem, because now you got to pay for the credit of what you got in advance. And most people chase that game. So totally. Another point is, when I was starting the show, literally I went from nothing to, I remember there was a point where it was, maybe 2 years ago or so, where I had a month where it was the first time I made $100,000 in a month. And I remember thinking, holy shit, I would have prayed to God to make $100,000 a year. And to be able to do it and enjoy, it's work, but to enjoy a dominant amount of that process in the right, vehicle was like incredible. But I remember, when I think back, when I was making less money, I was more stressed. I was more in a scarcity mindset. And I had a friend, I'll never forget it, my homie Norris, shout out Norris. We were all, when you have, heart-to-hearts with friends where you're complaining about their problems, you're talking about your problems, and they're your problem buddy, so to speak. So he's my problem buddy. I go to him with all my problems. He comes to me with all my problems. We, of course, solve it for the other, but we can never solve it for ourselves, right?
Right.
And so me and him were like joking one time after venting these problems. And he goes, bro, this was a couple years ago. He goes, bro, maybe we're just broke. Maybe we're just broke. And then, because you see everything through a lens of broke.
That's right.
And you might think, oh, this and that and this and that. When in reality, go get a haircut, go get a fresh pair of clothes, go get a nice suit, go take your significant other on a boat ride. And it literally, it's little things like that. But if you didn't have the extra cash, you wouldn't know it. You'd sit there in your own, mental tornado and not even know. But I totally believe that money isn't the key to happiness, but it definitely is not the key to unhappiness.
That's right. Now, being passionate, it's key in personal and also in life, or business, I should say. You are definitely passionate about what you're doing, Omar, and obviously now it's paying off. Where it's some good revenue, some good incomes coming in. What will you say to someone that's perhaps in the situation that you were in right after that breakup?
Yes. Okay, this is great. I tell everybody, try things fast. Try things fast. And this is so simple, but most people will never do it. Go try things fast. Whether it's go try a karate class, go try a kickboxing class, go try yoga, Go sit in on somebody who does real estate. Go listen to their cold calls. Go sit in. If you're thinking about being a nurse, go ask if you can shadow a nurse, or go ask if you can shadow a dentist. Or if you want to be a personal trainer, go shadow a personal trainer. Or go try to work out at the gym one day. Or go try to cook something once, right? I know it sounds so silly, but I have found that, interviewing people on the show, that every time I find or kind of dig for how they found their thing, right? It's always, oh, I was in a class and I met this guy and he told me about this, or I went this, or that. In the chain of events, the first thing was always they put themselves in an environment that was interesting or inspiring. There's always a common denominator. Nobody's sitting at home, sitting there self-loathing, and someone knocks on the door and they go, hey, try real estate, or hey, try this. You got to go out there and try things. Right. And try things doesn't necessarily mean just business stuff. I think you should try different business stuff, but go try something that just makes you feel good. I think, speaking on passion, I was talking about this last week with my buddy. I think so many people say, oh, I want to find something I'm passionate about, or I want to, love what I do, when in reality, they haven't felt passion in years. Right. You can't chase a feeling you don't know. So go get in the energy space of how you want to feel when you're prospecting. Go do something that would put you in a feel-good thing. Obviously not alcohol or drugs or whatever, but go whatever. Go for a run on the beach. You don't like a run on the beach? That's fine. Go for a boat ride. Go for a boat ride. It's $150. Go whatever. Go invest in yourself for something. Go take a painting class. And believe it or not, when you do that, when you give yourself permission to go experience joy, well, now your brain, it has a mechanism where if it knows a feeling, well, now you can go get more of it. And you can incorporate that feeling or generate that feeling in your work or link it up to what you do. But most people haven't felt passion in years, yet all of a sudden they want it to show up in work. You got to cultivate passion. Right. Passion isn't just Kobe Bryant didn't just see a basketball and go, oh, that's my passion. He tried it. Right? He tried this sport and that sport and this sport and that sport. And I think too many people, as they get older, they stop trying things. Think about it. When you're a kid, you try everything, right? That's right. You try talking to this girl, you try talking to that girl, right? You try basketball, you try soccer, maybe you try hockey, you try video games, you try gummy bears, you try Oreo, right? You go on this rapid testing mode, and then you find what you like. And some people, when they're young, they find their thing and they stick with it for a long time. Whereas most people, when they get older, they try one or two things and they're not good at it or they're embarrassed, and so they don't try again. Right? They try to have, one day of closing on the phone. They did a study actually, and they found it was in real estate. I forget the study or whatever it was, but they found that in real estate, most of the top performers weren't naturals. It's mostly the people that struggle with stuff and overcome the struggle that ended up becoming the masters, not people that were just naturally gifted at the thing. A lot of times, people that are naturally gifted end up taking it for granted. It's the people that work for stuff that keep it.
That's right.
So what's the expression? The easier you get it, the easier to have, the easier to lose.
That's right.
So I think that's one important thing about passion and cultivating is go out and try things. Yeah. So the young version of me who was stuck and depressed, you're just playing that loop over and over. It's not going to do anything. Yeah. It's going to make you feel good in the moment. Maybe it's going to win sympathy from friends, but nothing will change until you go try something. Right? For me, I tried to coach. Right? I didn't have anything. I had $300. He told me coaching was $250. At 24 years old, I emptied my bank account for a coaching session, right? And the stigma with coaching, my mom was like, what the hell are you doing? A coach, right? And so, but I tried it. And because of that gave me one inspiration. Oh, nothing in life is any meaning except the meaning I give it. Okay, boom. Let me try to message the creator of Hot Cheetos. Let me try to find his email. Let me try to And as I would try those things, little coincidences would show up. I meet somebody's cousin or brother, like today's interview. You saw how by trying to get that interview after, he was like, oh, I'll introduce you to this person or that. Absolutely. And so if you just try things for a long enough timeline, you'll find yourself attracting opportunity. And the most successful or accomplished people in their vertical or niche, money or otherwise, are attractors. They're not chasers. Think of the best closers in real estate. They build up so much of their business that business comes to them. That's right. They're not out there just chasing, but you gotta do your part first for the universe to respond back.
That's right. Are you a believer of the law of attraction?
Of course. My entire life, my team will tell you, is my entire life in the show has words that popped out of the page and into reality. I have a paper where I wrote down Tony Robbins, Jordan Belfort, all these people. And I look at the show and I'm like, damn, YouTube has the exact list of all the people I wrote down. That. Even to the degree that Tony Robbins last year sent me a voice memo personally. And my team was there and I tripped
How amazing was that?
I started crying. I couldn't believe it because I used to listen to Tony's stuff. When, I don't share this often, but I was at a low point, so I was like drinking and smoking weed, and I was in a really self-sabotage place. But I would be listening to his audios and CDs. Like I wouldn't be doing anything about it. I was just listening to personal development. I didn't know how to apply it, or I told myself I didn't know how to apply it. But to think that guy would acknowledge me, say, awesome, "Hey, Omar, it's Tony Robbins. I want to fly you out. It's a $10,000 thing for my event. I want to fly you out." I went backstage. I got to meet him, hang out with him. And he's acknowledged me for the good work I'm doing, and I told him all the stuff I want to do to the nonprofit. And to think this is the Tony Robbins, the guy that I used to listen to and cry about and write down, with my coach. If life was perfect, what would happen? If life was perfect, I would sit down with Tony Robbins. I would connect with these. And to think that has happened, I trip out all the time. I trip out every day.
So how often do you write stuff down?
Every day.
What you want to.
Every day. My whole
happen
team.
in the future.
Every day, and to the degree that I don't necessarily consciously do it in the morning. It's just a habit of mine. If anybody knows me, whenever I travel or at home, I have 20 notebooks at any given time. I'm horrible at keeping them all in one, but I'm constantly writing. Right. Because one thing I believe is, I'm a man of faith. I believe in God. For God to have His realities come to be, He wrote it down in a Bible.
That's right.
Right? Or a Quran or a Torah or whatever it is. So if God wrote stuff down to create it in reality, we're not. You know what I mean? We're just going to hold it in our head and hope it comes out to reality. This room we're sitting in right now, this was once something on paper.
That's right.
That suit, your watch, the camera's filming this right now. Everything starts on paper first. And most people never write down anything on paper and wonder why it didn't show up in their life.
That's right.
An architect, when they design a building, they're very specific, right? They don't just I want to build a tall building. No, I want it to be, 100 feet by, 46 feet. Clarity is power. Your brain knows how to work on things on paper. It can't hit a target you can't see. And most people never draw the bullseye.
Omar, have you had those naysayers?
Yes.
Those we all have them, right?
Yes.
And unfortunately, a lot of times it's just like loved ones.
Yes.
Like at least in
most
my
of the
case,
time.
like
yeah.
most of the time,
yes.
Your friends, family is like, no, what are you doing? You're crazy. If you did, or if you have,
yeah.
How to overcome that?
Yes. One simple line. You cannot transfer that which you're not experiencing. And you can't expect people who are not experiencing, I hate to say it this way, but not experiencing the most fulfilling life they could be, you can't expect them to transfer it to you.
That's right.
They don't know it. People can't share what they don't have. They can't give what they don't have, right? And so I think just acknowledging that has made me over the years take it less personal.
Right.
Before it used to hurt me,
yeah.
Because the people that I work the hardest to make proud are the people that criticize you the most.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Imagine me telling my family or friends or even my mom and dad being embarrassed when I started the show, because I had no money, no income, and they didn't watch any of the interviews. They thought I was wasting my time doing these things. And, to them, I think they were like, oh, where's your job? Where's your income? But I saw the vision. I saw the future. I still see it. And I would write it down. I would get so whipped up about it. But of course, all they see is a dude who got broken up with, who's drinking, who's smoking, who's 24 years old. By 24, they are, my dad already had, he's invested in real estate, so he had multiple properties already. So, and of course, in my head, that stigma was running around. But now, going back to the time horizon things, right? On a short timeline, it looked like I was a loser, so to speak. On a longer timeline, I love it now, because now when I go to family functions, oh my dude, oh big fan, dude, I love this, you know. So the tables have turned, and I'm grateful for that gift. But again, the way I tune it out is I just realize that they cannot give what they haven't experienced,
right.
And I don't take it personal. I know that, again, they just don't have that inspiration or that hope or that support maybe in themselves or others gave them to give to me. So I think just realizing that makes me take it less personal. And also, if I do feel pain, I've gotten really good over the years at turning pain into power. I just find a way to kind of, the way I think of it is kind of like, in Dragon Ball Z or whatever, how they like throw a fireball.
Yes.
Like you can let the fireball hit your chest, or you can like grab it with the momentum and spin it around with the same momentum. And so I've just found a way to intellectually do that. And I think the better you get at overriding your emotions and seeing that, the better you'll be. Plus, it doesn't hurt that I get to interview some of the most successful people in the world. So if I'm ever going through anything, I can ask, advice from somebody who's done it and conquered it a million times over. So I get a cheat code in a sense.
That's right. Omar, how close are you with your parents?
Our relationship is great now. But at the time, I think, I don't fault them. I realize that in their mind, they don't come from a world where podcasts and YouTube and revenue streams and passive income and online courses, and they don't come from that world, so they didn't understand it. My mom and dad, we have a great relationship now, but you got to keep in mind that they started their career in their 20s at a company, worked their whole life, and retired from that company after being there for 30 plus years. So all they know is stability and structure. Granted, they both moved up to very high accomplished positions, but still they didn't see what I saw. And for them, I was, again, 24 years old, smoking and drinking, so they see me as a dreamer, as an optimist, as like, man, what is this guy doing with his life, But fortunately, I proved them wrong a little bit.
That's right. You sure have. What ethnicities are your parents?
So nobody has ever asked me that. So I'm half Mexican and half Middle Eastern, half Egyptian. So my dad's side was all like diplomats, and then and very like political and proper. And on my Hispanic side, they all like to party and have a good time. So when I would go visit them on the weekends as a kid, on Saturdays, I would be with the Mexican family where we have, tacos, carne asada, beers. Cousins will slip me a beer when I'm young, or like send me a little something to smoke, or a little, and on both sides, they do really well on both sides. But I experienced culture at a very I experienced that kind of like authentic, rich culture. Mexican culture is a beautiful culture, so I got to experience that. And I also got to experience on the Middle Eastern side the political and proper and that kind of thing. So I think it made me well versed enough to talk to anybody from a billionaire to a homeless guy to a drug addict to an author. To I think it accidentally, or maybe it was God's way of making it happen, but it made me well versed to connect with anybody.
Absolutely. That was actually my next question. How does the two different cultures play a role in your life?
Yeah.
Kind of it's Mexican and what's
Middle Eastern.
Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
I mean, food on both of them are amazing.
Yes. Yes.
Amazing, right?
Yes.
And I believe that both cultures are pretty close with the family. Yes.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, both are very close with family. Hispanic culture is a little more liberal, fun, festive. Yeah. Middle Eastern culture has that, but it's a little bit more conservative. Yeah. So I would have conservative family that were like super spiritual, religious, and I had other cousins that were at times not religious at all. In and out of jail, I have crazy stories and wild adventures. And as a young kid, I was always asking questions. Oh, what about this? Or how did you? What was jail like your first time? Or what was it? And then on the next day, I'm like, hey, what was it like? My grandfather was an ambassador, so and I have cousins that are in that realm too. So I had such an opportunity to just ask questions of various stories, and it just made me obsessed with like stories. And ever since then, it's never left me.
So you think the whole passion of being a interviewer and being in this space it happened when you were a kid?
I think the seeds of like the skill were, and I think most people, if they look back, Steve Jobs has this beautiful line. He says, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking back." And you don't always know how the dots will connect, but believing in yourself is trusting that the dots will somehow connect. And so I didn't know it at the time, but it certainly has helped me more than I could ever imagine, because I mean, you just saw I could talk to a huge CEO, and I've talked to billionaires, and immediately after I could talk to somebody homeless on the street and have an honest conversation. That's what makes me so passionate about what we're doing. I've had a nonprofit, and I've helped volunteer a lot. I have a soft spot. I grew up as a skateboarder, so I used to meet tons of homeless people all the time, and I got to see that they're not these like scary monsters that when you're younger a lot of people might think, or they don't know. I got to see the human side of a lot of people who are homeless, who are struggling, who have drug addiction, who haven't had a meal to eat in days, who haven't seen their family in weeks, who have they haven't had clean socks or underwear in a long time, don't have access to a shower or access to medical attention. And so stuff like that really inspires me nowadays.
So I know you're someone that's doing what you're doing for a greater cause. You want to inspire, you want to help, you want to give back.
Yes.
What's your 5-10 year vision? 'Cause
Yes.
you're a visionary.
Yes.
You're there already.
Yes.
Where can I expect Omar 5-10 years from now?
Someone asked me this a long time ago. And ever since the first time I've been asked and every time after that, I've always had some variation of the answer. The truth is, I could give a PR polished answer, but the truth is, I just love what I do so much that I just want to get better and better at it. So if that's serving more people, doing more interviews, helping more clients, attracting more amazing people to my team, for me, I just want to grow and I just want to get more and more. Now, of course, on the business side, I have aspirations with my real estate investments, stuff like that. But on a mission for the show, I'm just a man on a mission, man. And a lot of people have podcasts, a lot of people have shows, but I truly in my heart believe that God put it on me to tell stories in a way that I don't think very many people on the planet are doing. If I'm alive here to do it, then I'll be darned, I'll do it. I did it broke, I did it in debt, and I certainly won't stop now.
Now, Omar, what do you think a lot of people that are doing podcasts and interviews and all this other shows and stuff?
Yeah.
What do you think their focus is a bit different than perhaps yours?
That's a great question. I think a lot of people, I help a lot of YouTubers and podcasters, stuff like this. So I think there's probably 3 core motivations, all of which are totally cool. And some have a variation of 1 or 2 or all 3. But I would say number 1, people want to build their personal brand, obviously grow their business, and I think it's great to do that. Number 2, people want to meet amazing people, and I'm not going to lie, a podcast is a great excuse to meet a lot of people.
Right.
If it wasn't for these cameras here, I wouldn't have met a single person. It's crazy to think that if I asked all these people for their time, they would never do it. Have done it prior, but if you say there's cameras, yeah, sure. How's Friday at 3? So I think meeting people is a phenomenal one. And number 3 is to impact lives, because it's inspiring as hell. Even till this day, I still get a buzz off the lights and the cameras and asking questions, and also at this stage, getting feedback from people. Hearing people say, thank you so much for sharing that, or thank you so much for touching. Maybe your clients are people who, might want to work with you in your coaching programs or whatever. They'll hear, like you said in the beginning, one thing, and that one thing will go, shit, I just had a breakup. Or, oh shit, my dad was also abusive. Or, and see that, and because of that, they're saying, oh, me too, not just so what. And I think one of the challenges with those 3 motivations sometimes is that people go into it for more of a vanity thing, more like, oh, I'm the interviewer, I want to be the guy. When it's funny, because one of the biggest compliments I get is thanks for staying quiet so the guests can talk. You know what I'm saying? Which is counterintuitive. You would think like, I'd want praise for talking so well or articulating so well or whatever. But honestly, one of the biggest compliments I get is that I know when to shut up and just listen. And I think that little nuances like that are so important. Because how many times have you watched an interview, wanted to hear something, and they kept getting, the interviewer kept interrupting and they couldn't quite get to the point. Or, just little things like that. But all in all, what I think we do different is I think the way I ask questions, I think the way we capture stories. For me, the mission has always been to humanize greatness one story at a time. The creator of Hot Cheetos, a lot of people might just want to talk about Cheetos, but he was a janitor.
Yeah.
And so if anybody can listen to that interview, if we go back, I'm obsessed with knowing the step by step process. And I don't think very many people do that well. And I don't mean this to toot my own horn. I mean it because I've put in work at the craft and I love to do it more than anything in this world. And I think it inspires people to go, for example, Mr. Montañez, last time he was in school was in the 4th grade. He jokes with me that he spent more time in prison than in college. To go from that to making $3 an hour as a janitor.
Wow.
How did he go from that to becoming this multi-millionaire executive who created Hot Cheetos that's done billions of dollars in revenue? No education, Hispanic, especially in those days, there's a lot of prejudice against him being Mexican. He was the janitor at Frito-Lay. He cold called the CEO to pitch him on Hot Cheetos. the courage that takes. You know, now everyone sees hot Cheetos. Oh, of course it's amazing. But at the time, it was the invisible, and he made it visible. And so I've become obsessed with those stories because I know what it's like to be a kid. And I remember, you know, for example, I would go with my dad to like a soccer game, or I would meet professional skateboarders. And when I would meet pro athletes or pro skateboarders, I would go, oh my God, they're like me. They have like the same skin and bones. And I would like read interviews, and they're like, oh, I used to skate every day or play soccer every day. I never thought that I would have a signature shoe on Nike. And so I've always become obsessed about that gap. How did you go from being a regular dude to owning 100 units or being a multi-millionaire? I was so obsessed with just like, what's the story? Because so many people see the end result, but they don't hear I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. And so I believe that God put me on this planet to help people close that gap.
Close that gap. You're absolutely right. Everybody's, especially with social media, everybody focuses on the now.
Yes.
But we forget that there was a before and like a during.
Yes.
Process,
which is most of the time. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And you're absolutely right. That's a super important aspect on growth. You want to grow in personal, you want to grow in business, you have to make sure that you learn how everything started and what it took to get there. So with that being said, how difficult, how challenging was that for you, Omar, to get to, from where you were a couple of years ago when you first started to where you're at now? What was that in-between process?
Lots of challenges. Some of my team here can tell you. Lots of prayer, lots of crying, lots of debt, lots of brokenness. I mean, a lot of challenging times for sure. Even I remember early on, like some of these interviews were so impossible to get that, when I interviewed Tom Bilyeu, for example, you got to understand, this is, he just sold Quest for $1 billion plus. But at the time, I had never really done, I don't know if that was my like third interview ever. And I had no money. I remember I had to borrow a couple $100, and it was like $200 from my sister to pay a videographer who I had met online. I had never even met him. I met him outside of Tom Bilyeu's house in Beverly Hills at 4 in the morning when it was pitch black outside. And one of his cameras, we had 2 cameras, one of his cameras wasn't working. And so I had to like deal with the nerves of meeting this guy, the nerves of doing the interview, the nerves of getting the interview, the nerves of paying this guy, paying my sister back, now it's for one interview. And for the first year, the first 20 of those were brutal. And then I started finding little by little great people. I met Kevin from my team, Luis Castro from my team. And these guys are all dudes that do great stuff, for their clients now. And now, to think that like they've met amazing people through the show who become clients. And then, it just like grows and grows. It's like, I forget the expression, but it says the rising tide rises all boats.
That's right.
And so I think that's been something that's been incredibly beautiful. But yeah, lots of challenges, lots of like, I remember like, I'd be like crying in my car, I'd be like, God, like I don't understand. I'm trying to do your work. And I remember I was at a gas station, I had no money for gas. I'm here interviewing billionaires. When I interviewed Grant Cardone, I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, I saw it.
I interviewed Grant Cardone and Elena Cardone in Malibu, overlooking the water. I didn't have enough gas money to get to that interview. So my buddy had to give me a ride. And I remember going back home, and I was at the gas station, I was crying in my car because I didn't have money for gas. Yet everybody on social media, oh my God, your interviews are amazing, so inspiring. This was 2017, 3.5 years ago or so. And I just remember moments like that, and I would just pray to God, like, I don't understand, like, why can't I figure out how to monetize this? Or why can't I figure out how to, make it work? But in retrospect, that pressure forced me to figure things out. God wasn't going to just give me a check because I did a couple interviews. So I had to like try this. Remember going back to the try thing, try this, fail, try this, fail, try this, fail, try this, fail, try this. Oh, it worked a little bit. Okay, let me try it some more. Oh, it works some more. Try something else. This fail, And it was that constant auditioning process. And it still is. Anybody in business will tell you that.
Yes.
There's people that make $10 million a year that can tell you that, in the pandemic, they lost it all. And now they're, making a couple $100,000, which net is not a lot for them. So that happens at every level. Right. So, I think that's huge. And in retrospect, those struggles, and it sounds so generic, I know, but those struggles are what grow the muscle. And I'll give you a parallel story. So this is the story of how a caterpillar actually becomes a butterfly. So, caterpillars go into a cocoon, right? and in the cocoon, they it like gets tight and they wiggle and they break out and become a butterfly, right? Now, this is fascinating stuff. So this is scientific. When a caterpillar goes into a cocoon, there's a good percentage of them that actually suffocate and die inside of the cocoon and never come out to be a butterfly. What's fascinating, though, is that the caterpillars, as they wiggle inside of a cocoon, right, inside of that tight space, and the metaphor here is if you're in a tight space in life, right, whether it's finances or relationship or lack of clarity or just, tough times or you're lost or, whatever it is, if you're in your own cocoon, that the process of the caterpillar wiggling, the exact muscle that it needs to hold the wings is the exact muscle that it takes to break through the cocoon. Think about that. How poetic is that? In God's infinite wisdom, the metaphor there, that a caterpillar, if it stops wiggling, it suffocates and dies inside of the cocoon. But if it keeps wiggling, it's actually building a muscle, kind of like repping weight, right? So you're repping that weight, and that weight allows you to hold a bigger weight. But most people just see the cocoon. They don't understand God's promise or whatever they believe that there's going to be a butterfly after. And the process of struggling and the bills and the crying and the I'm lost and the tears and the breakups and the, all that's you just wiggling in the cocoon. And some people give up and suffocate and die in the cocoon, but others break out and become butterflies. But people just see the butterfly. They don't see the caterpillar. They don't see the cocoon. They don't see the wiggling. They go, damn, he's a butterfly. Damn, she's a butterfly. And on social media, everybody's flapping their wings, right? Everybody's a butterfly. And so what I love about that is that the exact muscle required to hold the wings once you break out needs to be built, and it's built through wiggling. So the muscle to be successful and sustain the wings of success require you to wiggle in the cocoon to break through. But most people never see that. Most people stop wiggling.
Wow. I heard you say something earlier that Tim Story,
yes,
he says it all the time. He says, people can break or have a breakthrough.
Yes.
People can break or have a breakthrough. And ever since the first time I heard him say that, I was like, oh my God, this is so true. So many people that break before they get their breakthrough.
Yeah.
They stop moving around.
Yes, wiggling, yeah.
Wiggling around. They stop trying.
Yes.
And that's what you said. How do you get out of a relationship or maybe something that was not good to you? You keep trying different things and you move fast.
That is so important.
You move fast.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
I think that's so important because if you don't, it's not going to come out of nowhere. You got to earn it. You got to. Right. And the other thing too is one thing a little game I play with myself is anytime I'm in a pinch, and it happens to all of us, right? We're all in a pinch at some point.
Yes.
One thing I do now is I have this weird game I play in my head where I go, oh, my competitor had this exact same thought, insecurity, or problem. Right? So I go, oh, okay, imagine, instead of just thinking, oh, Omar has this problem, I think, okay, 100 other people on this planet who are trying to do what I'm doing have this exact problem right now. How many of them are going to complain? How many of them are going to man up and solve it? How many of them are going to let it defeat them? Right? And so I actually get excited about doing hard things because I know that most people won't. That's so right. So I've psychologically manipulated the way I look at it. So instead of just focusing on me, I focus on damn, my competitor would probably give up on that. Screw it, I won't. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I take it out of just Omar is experiencing this and I think, oh, they're experiencing it. But a true champion must always adapt. I can adapt.
I love that.
Yeah.
Speaking about that, the pandemic, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. COVID lockdown was enforced a few months ago.
Yeah.
What happened during the pandemic? Do you held back? Do you stay back and thought about what was going to happen with Omar's business, or were you proactive on the whole approach?
Yeah, in the beginning, I think like everybody, just waiting to see what happened. I have a sensitive immune system, so I was particularly worried. Obviously, since then, I think a lot of people have realized the holes they have in their business, realized how vulnerable they were. It really tested people's liquid assets, right? It really tested people a lot in every market. But I think one thing it did, and I was talking with my buddy Chase, shout out Chase Hero, about this, is that it showed everybody their weak spots. It shows everybody where their weak spots are. And it's not fun, but it kind of did that to the whole world. It kind of shook up everybody to like, oh, okay, you think you have it under control? Watch this. And nobody got out. Nobody. Sure. I mean, you're talking $1 billion companies, $1 million companies, people, startups, freelancers at every level. Yeah, startup, everybody. Airbnb, I forget, I don't know the math on it, but I think they were about to go public and they were preparing this big IPO. It's huge. And just like that, Airbnb's, not in a hot space right now. Very few people are using Airbnb at all or feel comfortable. Right. So it goes to show that, you can't count on anything. And so I think in a good way that happened. And one of my mentors, Dr. John DeMartini, talks about this concept that the universe is in perfect balance. And it's kind of, out there, but I really believe this, that anytime something happens, there's always an equal balanced effect on the other side. So a lot of people's maybe lives, maybe professions, all these challenges occurred. But on the flip side, think about how much closer you've been, for example, with your maybe wife and kids, right? How many families got closer together? Yes. How often do people check on their grandma? A lot more than they used to, right? How often are people eating healthier, right? I think that they did a report saying that like health foods and supplements and vitamins have gone up astronomically. As a skateboarder myself, the skateboard industry, was kind of struggling. And now every skate shop you go to, stuff is sold out. Big Five is killing it. They're selling baseballs and footballs, and because people are getting out there, they're getting more physical, getting more active, they're bored at home. So there's all these benefits that have occurred, and while certain industries have taken a hit, other industries are exploding. Look at Zoom. Zoom is on a rocket ship to the top right now. And so I think it was a reallocation, but I think there was a perfect balance, and there's a beauty in it. Again, as a man of faith, I believe that it's challenging to accept that. I've had loved ones who are affected, and I know many people have had loved ones who passed away from it. But on a global level, I think people will come to see that this situation did more to grow them than shrink them.
That's right. I love that. Omar, I normally have my guests give out 5 tips.
Okay.
5 tips, and it could be on the self-development side. It could be on the entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. Just 5 tips that someone that's going to watch the video or listen to the podcast can benefit from, coming from Omar,
perfect,
a rock star.
Perfect. Let's do it. So 5 tips?
5 tips.
Number 1, I would say stay flexible. That is so important to have expectations. They're going to get broken. You're going to think something's going to happen, a client's going to happen, this relationship's going to happen, this idea is going to happen, and you have to be willing to have your expectations be shattered and still have an enthusiastic, positive attitude. So I think staying flexible is so important, number 1. Number 2, have fun. This is and the reason I start with the 2 easiest are because if you don't have this foundationally, all the other motivation stuff doesn't last. Sure. You gotta have fun. If you look at people who sustain anything, they enjoy the process. What good is it if you go make $1 zillion, but you're all uptight and stressed on? Enjoy the process. I've met some of the best in the world at their craft, and they're having a good time. They're laughing, they're joking. Work hard, but don't forget that going back to the balance, right? If you're gonna work hard, laugh hard, joke hard, have fun with it. The third thing is that a true champion must always adapt. And I know it kind of sounds like the stay flexible, the first tip, but you got to know and expect that it's going to change. We live in a changing world, and if you really want to be a champion at what you're doing, you expect that and you embrace that. I'm a big fan of boxing, and when Conor McGregor fought Floyd Mayweather, in the post interview for both Floyd and Conor, they asked them about the fight. And Conor said something beautiful, and it speaks to, a lot of people don't like Floyd, but I respect him as a defensive fighter. Of course. Hard to argue with his numbers, although people say pick the fights. He changed his fighting style 3 times during that fight. And if you watch it again, I think very few people actually noticed it, but he changed his style 3 times in that fight. So Floyd was actually struggling to find a way to beat Conor because Conor's so unorthodox compared to what Floyd was used to. And Conor kept his composure, kept it cool, showed no signs of pain. And even in the interview with Conor says, he kept his composure the whole time. I would hit him with jabs. I would look for any kind of reaction. Nothing. Just straight kept his composure, adapted. And after they asked Floyd, and Floyd said, a true champion must always adapt. You adapt, you pivot, and you got to know that's you want to be the type of person that can pivot, not the type of person that had a plan and got the plan. It's never going to happen. Where's the story in that? Where's the magic in that? Where's the growth in that? Where's the inspiration to the world in that? Where's God's wisdom in that? God didn't create us to have a straight path to the thing. And I think a lot of people just want to get to the end, the last chapter in their book, and they want to skip the rest. But if you think about it, what makes a book interesting? It's those trials, it's those tribulations.
Yes.
And very often, kind of like the cocoon thing, that process of wiggling, that's where you learn about yourself.
Right.
Think about it. When people are winning, think about the biggest checks you've ever gotten in your life, the biggest months, the highest highs you've ever had in your life. Chances are you make most of your stupid decisions when you're on that high. Your stupid purchases, stupid decisions, maybe with people, business, whatever. But think about when you're the wisest. Usually it's when you're in a tough time. Your significant other leaves you, or you leave them, or you lose a job, or you're broke, or whatever it is. And when you're pinned up against the wall, that's when you start praying to God. That's when you start looking for answers. That's when you start reading. That's when you start personal development. Most people who go to seminars aren't looking because they have it all together. They're going there because they got a whole lot of stuff they need to work on.
Yes.
And so I think that when you can start to see that as a blessing and something exciting to work on, instead of a deficiency in yourself, a whole new world opens up. 2 more quick tips. And I think this is probably not that noted. But Jim Rohn has this concept that I love. He says, success is not something you pursue. What you pursue will elude you. Success is something that you attract by the person that you become. And I think a lot of people go out there pursuing stuff. I can't tell you how many blessings have come into my life just because of how I was being. I could sit at a desk and type on a computer and try to close deals or whatever it is for 10 hours, and that won't be as productive as just being in a good energy space, going down to the lobby and meeting somebody that could be a client, a guest on the show, change my business, change my future, open up an opportunity, just because I'm in a good energy space. One of my mentors, Thatch Wynn, he talks about this concept where he had a lot of people in his office who were doing this 100-door challenge,
Right.
where they were knocking on 100 doors. And so he wanted to beat them. So he did this thing where he calls it 10 inspired doors. So he would go out, and instead of just knocking on 100 doors, just unemotionally associated, he would drive around neighborhoods, properties that he liked, and he would specifically go to ones that he was inspired by. And he found that he would go and get 2 or 3 of those deals out of 10, compared to people who were just knocking 100 doors, not fully in a good energy space about it. Because 10 inspired phone calls, if you're in an inspired state, or hey, the inflections in your voice, all those little nuances creep in, and someone trusts you a little more, they like you a little more.
Yes.
And you take that over a day, a week, a month, a year, you could do amazing things. The reason he's known, Thatch Wynn, shout out to Thatch, is he helps people in real estate cash flow. I think it's like over $100,000 a month is what he's doing now. But he was a young kid from Vietnam who had nothing.
Yes.
And he found personal development. And so I think that's huge. Who you're being is so important.
That's right.
There's an expression, just to lock in that point, is that who you're being is so loud that I can't hear what you're saying, right? So I think that's huge.
That.
And number 5, you can't hit a bullseye you can't see.
Right.
I said it earlier, but you cannot hit a bullseye you can't see. Because say, and every day is a dart, right? And say you throw a dart at a bullseye, but you didn't draw a bullseye, you might have hit it and not even know. You might just because you never got clear on who your significant other was, they might have walked right past you, or you had a conversation with them and you'll never know it. The dream business, a client, in real estate or anything else, you might be so in your head about this, that, or whatever, complaining, whatever. You might not realize the guy sitting next to you at the bar or at the restaurant, whatever, is the most perfect client imaginable.
That's right.
But if you have a bullseye, boom, your brain knows how to go to work on that bullseye. And most people never draw the bullseye, and as a result, they just throw darts and waste the day.
5 great tips. Omar, lastly,
Yes.
I'm a student of the game. I'm always learning, and that's why I want to do this interview with you. I want to learn from the best. And the reason for that is because I really can connect and relate with the passion that you really have on what you're doing. I had to drop out of high school in 9th grade to support my mom and my younger sister.
Yeah.
I've gone through ups and downs like you have no idea.
Yeah.
But right now I'm in a place in my life that I just want to inspire, motivate, and help people. What would you say the best way, or one of the best ways for me to be able to continue to do that and build so more people are inspired, motivated? They see that if JJ could do it, if Omar could do it, they could do it. What will you say to JJ right now? Because I'm a student again, I want to learn from you.
So I would say lead by example, number one. And number two, genuinely care.
Yes.
If you care, the right things will happen. You know, before I do every interview, I do this little thing where I go, I don't know if you noticed, but before every interview, I always go into a restroom or a little corner and I do a little prayer. And I just pray for God to give me the insights, the intellect, the brevity, the questions, whatever it takes that's meant to happen in that interview. Because so often what would happen is I would go into interviews and after I go, damn it, I should have said this, or damn, why did I say that, or I should have said that. And I did it so much, I would beat up on myself. And so what I do now is in advance, I just do a quick little prayer in my head and I ask God to have the right things happen and I trust and let it go. So I think the one advice I would give to people who do, you know, shows or podcasts or whatever it is to help inspire people is if you just genuinely care and like that internal thing is there, that energy, the right things will happen. Your internal being will do far more than your external, you know, logic or hope or whatever. You know, if it's one person who hears it and they're shifted, that matters much more than, you know, 100 million people who hear it and nobody does anything with it. You know, a lot of people create content online that are silly pranks, make people laugh. Nothing wrong with that. But if you want to give them something deeper, a gift of inspiration, I think if you really care, people will feel that.
That's right.
You know, when I started the show, you know, for example, my interview with Manny Koshpin's got over 1 million views. I tripped out if one person listened to my podcast. Now we've got over 8 million people. I trip out all the time. Where are these people? Who are these people? How did this happen?
Amazing.
And I've never spent $1 in ad spend, but I truly believe that if you care, remember what I said earlier, you cannot transfer that which you're not experiencing. I think a big reason why my audience is so inspired is because I was. And I think people feel that when I ask questions, I'm not asking it to build a brand. I'm not asking it just to sell more products or services. I'm not asking it to get more clients. I'm not, you know, doing all that stuff's great, and I love it. I love to serve people in all those capacities. Plug, you can probably even see it in the description below. But for me, what's more important is living this bucket list of what I love to do. And if you love it, and if you're doing it with that sense of intent, you know, even God judges deeds based on intent, depending on people's spiritual belief. But in most religions, God judges your actions based on your intent, not based on what happens.
That's right.
And so I believe that a lot of times we get so attached to the what happens, but it's like, dude, if God judges you based on intent, you're gonna pick a different metric than He is. So I think if you fall in love with the intent of it, if you really care and don't care too much about, you know, the numbers per se, the numbers have a funny way of taking care of themselves.
That's right.
And audiences will feel that. You know, when I started, I was super scared. Am I good at interviews? Am I, you know, do I look weird? I'm not buff. I'm not, you know, I had all these things in my head. And, but I think because I love to do it, people feel that.
That's right.
And, you know, because of that, you know, 10,000 people got fed today. I got to meet your awesome self.
Awesome, man.
And hopefully, you know, because other people led by example, I got inspired to lead by example, and because of you, more people will get inspired to lead by your example too.
I love that. Omar, it was a pleasure meeting you.
Sir.
It was a pleasure to have you on podcast. Thank you so very much. And what can I say? Just keep doing what you're doing, brother, because you definitely inspired me, and I'm sure you're going to inspire a whole lot more people. So thank you so very much.
Brother. God bless you, and thank you for being one of the passionate few.
Awesome.
That was Real Talk with JJ Jara. Hope
Let's
you guys
go.
enjoyed it. Thank you so much for enjoying this video. And if you found this content valuable, uplifting, and inspiring to take your life and your business to the next level, then I have some exciting news for you. Because the Passionate Few Academy officially launched our brand new on-demand training that you can access absolutely free at www.tpfacademy.com. Right there, you'll learn the #1 way to grow your personal brand or business brand online fast. The same way I've learned from interviewing some of the most successful people on the planet right here on the show who've done exactly that. So again, don't forget to check it out, www.tpfacademy.com. I promise you, you'll be blown away. And also, don't forget, there's 3 ways you can connect with me further. #1, you can text me absolutely free at the number on the screen right now and send me your most pressing life, business, or branding question, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. #2, if you'd like to be interviewed on the show, you can actually apply right now in the description below, and apply to share your incredible story, brand, or business right here with an audience of potentially millions of people, the same way we've helped experts, entrepreneurs, and authors just like you. And don't forget, that opportunity comes with the ability to partner with us and help feed 1 million people through our partnership with Feeding America. Again, you can click the link in the description below titled Interview Application to find out more. And last but not least, number 3, if you'd like to get consulting from our team and work with you to help you grow your personal brand or business brand, no matter what industry you're in, we can do that by simply filling out the questionnaire in the description below titled Consulting Application. And if our team thinks that you'd be a great fit, who knows, you may just be invited to work with us to help you take your business to the next level. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for enjoying this video. Make sure to smash that subscribe button, turn on post notifications so you never miss an episode. And until next time, live strong, live with passion, and I'll see you in the next inspiring video.